recorded live.
Good evening. This is the March 29th, 2013 installment of Genesis Science Fiction Radio Series' radio show. And we are, of course, a service of Black Science Fiction Society. You can, of course, access the Black Science Fiction Society online here. Today we have the opportunity to meet with artist Lena J. The thing that I looked at first, we got the opportunity to look at a lot of Lena's information before we started out. And so if you head out to her Bohemian Cafe Comics.blogspot.com, she has a little segment that says About Me. And it says, my name is Lena J. May Hopkins Jackson. But in this case, the J is for my middle name, Janelle. This is the thing. I'm a full-time cartoonist, part-time columnist, self-published author, sporadic painter, occasional spoken word poet, devoted art teacher, round-the-clock friend, and I was born a diva. Now, what else can you say? So let's get into it, Lena J. Could you tell us a little bit about Lena J? Where were you born? Siblings? How did you start out?
Okay. You asked me. I didn't catch that last part. Repeat it one more time, Penelope.
Just, where were you born? Do you have any siblings? What kind of family you grew up in? And just how did you start out?
Okay, let me just warn you, I'm naturally silly. So the first thing I thought was I was born the daughter of a sharecropper, but that's not true. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. I do have one sibling that I love very much. I usually claim him, and let's see here. There's just the four of us, my mom, my father, and I guess most notably my father is an artist, and I grew up watching him paint Ernie Barnes-style paintings, artists from Good Times, and that was my very first influence.
Wow. Actually, it's funny when I look at the profile picture, it's not pictures of the art that he does your profile, the art diva, kind of see Ernie Barnes' influence. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, I had opportunity to meet him before he passed away when I was a sophomore at Winston-Salem State University, and it was, I would say, life-changing. He gave me that kind of advice you never forget.
So when you said, just right off the bat, that you grew up in an art family, that your father was an artist. Was your mother an artist?
No, Mom was an English teacher. She retired as a principal, but that's where my love of literature came from. And, when you think cartoons, a lot of people just think of visual arts, but it was recently explained to me that when you say cartoonist, it does usually mean writer and artist, which I do both. And that's where my love of writing came from. I used to pick up her big book of Shakespeare when she was getting her master's, and I would attempt to read something that I saw in there. I emphasize attempt to read, but I guess the two of them, between the love of literature and the love of drawing, that's what inspired me the most as a child.
Right. And when you were a young girl, you were inspired. When you were a kid in school, did your artistic talent manifest itself then, or did that come about later?
Actually, I started drawing at 3. Stick drawings, like you can imagine. I mean, not full-blown portraits or anything, but the interest started as young as, like I said, a toddler. And I would draw pictures in class, and like most artists I've heard of, yes, I would get in trouble, but not so much where I didn't pay attention. But I've always loved to doodle. I've always loved to draw and any and everything. But the interest in cartoons, that started from watching the Saturday morning lineup back in the 1970s with like the Super Friends and Scooby-Doo, shows like that. I would always grab a big stack of typing paper and try and draw everything I saw on TV before VCRs were invented or DVR, where you could actually stop motion and look at it. And, so that's, I guess, all my life, really.
Right. And when you were in that, like you said, that drawing vibe, and you're in school, like you were saying, that little bit of distraction, were there any teachers at that juncture when you were coming up that, either helped, hindered, helped you focus your talent, or was your father your primary
Absolutely. To answer your question, I would say help and hindered. I had an art teacher in elementary school, African-American teacher, but I can't remember her name because she came sporadically. And, we're talking like second or third grade. Junior high school, I'll be very honest, I had back-to-back teachers that I loathed. Not to make this a race thing, but there was a Caucasian lady, Miss Jackson, and she was, I don't know. The best way I can just sum it up is the more she gave me and other students a hard time, and the harder I worked to make her like me, and I finally realized it wasn't going to happen. She didn't want to be at a mostly black junior high school, which was my school, J.T. Williams, almost 95% African American. You just kind of sensed something, and I said, I'm not going to let her stop me, And I guess some of the best satisfaction I had was running into her in the art circles in my city, and for her to, she didn't recognize me at first, but I made sure she knew. And then my college professors, Arsenio Davis, the late great Roland. I'm forgetting his last name. Mr. Huff. I've had some wonderful art teachers, all from Winston-Salem State University, that influenced me greatly. And Miss Little, Miss Glenda Wharton Little, was very, and that's part of the benefits of going to an HBCU. Having teachers that not only look like you, but their experiences are similar, being African-American artists and going to whatever.
Right, and I guess that you kind of touched on a little bit of what my next question was your education. Where did you get your art and your writing education?
Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, home of the mighty, mighty Rams. And let's see, I'll tell you something else, to be very honest. As much as I love my alma mater, I got more of an education actually on the, see how can I say, I don't want to say the gritty streets. It makes it sound like I'm somewhere in an alleyway, but actually on the site working, like going to amusement parks. I started off at Carowinds amusement park, which is kind of like Six Flags in North Carolina, and having that opportunity to set up in front of hundreds and then thousands of people coming through the park, and they will say any and everything to you, and you're on the spot having to draw like 1 to 5 minute drawings of people. That was some of the best education I could have got because it made my skin very thick. So I can take almost any kind of critique.
Well, one of the things that you did hit on, and of course, in the BSFS, that we like to deal with is, of course, the issues of being an artist, also an artist of color, having to deal, of course, with teachers who maybe don't quite understand your focus. So, I mean, I look at your artwork, and I'm looking, like you said, they have that Ernie Barnes kind of, a vibe to it. But you decided that you were going to draw people of color, people, black women, people who look like you. Did you get any pushback?
Did I repeat that? Did any what?
Did you get any pushback from people when you, made it?
Okay.
But
Let's see.
you show black women who look like black women when you did your drawing?
That's a great question. And let me be clear, as much as I was influenced by African-American professors at my school, I was also influenced by artists, Caucasian artists, Latino artists, Asian artists. It's everything, and that's the beauty of art, I think, that there's no filter. It's not like you can, just say, I'm only going to be influenced by people that look like me. But the greatest influence, of course, would be by other African Americans. As far as feedback is concerned, I've been blessed to have received a lot of wonderful feedback from African American women saying, "I love how you draw the roundness of our hips and the shades of our skin color, the rainbow." I'm very aware of that. Interestingly enough, it's helped me in my career as a caricaturist, because I have found that not always, but a lot of times, Caucasian artists aren't always aware of the differences and the nuances of people of color. So whenever someone's Puerto Rican or Mexican, I've actually heard someone say, "Well, they all look the same." And I'm like, yeah, they're Latino, but there are differences. And just like there are differences between African Americans and Africans, the list goes on. I think if you are a person of color, you're just going to be more aware. So the best feedback that I received probably is when little girls in particular look at me like, "Okay, you see me," and that's a great feeling.
Right. And also that, I mean, I look, and like I said, we had the opportunity to look at some of your work, and some of it is very, adult, but do you also work for,
say the least.
Do work that is directed at youth and young adults as well?
A project I'm working on right now, actually, we shifted focus. The author, Jesse Sifford, came up with this concept for doing characters dealing with time travel in the 24th century. And we decided to push it towards junior high school up to like early 20s, partially for marketing reasons, but also because we thought that was the magic age. And, you have to be more careful, because I do like to draw for an adult audience, but because I do teach art to young people, because I have done some children's books, my own as well as for other people, I have to shift into that area where there's not such I don't want it to look a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, a sort of, not lewd, but I don't want to come off suggestive, because some of my influences were adult types of mediums growing up as well.
And on that note, because we do have a lot of parents, aunts, uncles, young people who do listen to the show, if you wouldn't mind just going through some of the titles that you have been attached to for your young adult audience, so that people know to look for those titles, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Let's see. Most well-known would probably be gospel recording artist John P. Key. If anyone's familiar with the gospel scene, there's a character called Little Rufus, the original artist for that. Then there is a book called Pigtails. I'm not exactly sure how many stores where Pigtails is available, but I'm the illustrator behind the Pigtails series. That would be Jamie and Daryl, Jamie Lee Brown, and Daryl Williams. Let's see. Then there's my own book, Me, Tony C, 1973. I wrote and illustrated that. And gosh, I start thinking back to, and be on the lookout for a book about etiquette with Ebony Moore. That's going to be an interesting project, because she has a program, kind of like a debutante program for African-American girls, and she decided to write a book about etiquette because, well, frankly, it's needed. And the idea was to come up with these characters like a cross between the Spice Girls meets the Bratz dolls.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about that.
And when should we expect to see that?
Let's see. She kind of gave me, I know she has a deadline. I'm thinking around summertime, fall by the latest.
Yeah,
because right now it's just locally published.
That is something that is absolutely needed.
Yeah, I not to go on about that honestly, I think so. I won't even get into the things that I witnessed working as a teaching artist in the school system and with nonprofits and different organizations I work with. I give certain communities a free pass because if, you're worrying about things like major survival skills that your parents or your parent is dealing with, you're not concerned about which fork you're eating with or whether you were nice to the little lady who walked in front of you. You probably got bigger things on your mind. But nevertheless, having good social mores is something that's crucial for everybody because you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And that's something I find a lot of young African Americans are increasingly going without, and that's a mistake.
Yeah, and I think, in all honesty, that's something that I've seen too. Living where I do in Texas, that a lot of our young people, things that we learned when we were really young, that were just par for the course. How you relate to an adult, how you treat each other in public. That a lot of that is just lost, and something like that I think is an important issue, and certainly that's something that we'll be looking out for, and especially our young men and our young women, to know, how to deal with them.
Yes, exactly. I would like to see her do something for young men. To be honest with you, I've done projects over the years because, let's see, I've been a professional artist, and when I say professional, I count that meaning like it's paying my bills or close. I would say roughly 18, almost 20 years, pretty much half my life, which kind of tells you my age. But, that is, I don't know, that's just something I wanted to point out, that I've worked on a lot of projects, but once I'm done, a lot of times I've moved on and I'm on to the next one, because as much as I may have enjoyed, a project before, a children's book I've illustrated, unless it became like a huge success, I don't always follow what the author did with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you said that you teach. Could you tell us how did you come about deciding that you were going to teach?
Let's see. I think it was, I don't want to sound corny, but I think it was kind of born in me. My mother was a teacher for years, and I think I was partially inspired by watching her. And then here's the funny thing. I fought it. I really didn't want to teach. My attitude used to be, very honestly, those who can do, art, draw, dance, act, sing, those who can't teach. And I mean no offense, but this was my thinking at 18 years old. I mean, I came to school at 17 actually. So I was a 17-year-old freshman, and that was my attitude, like, I don't have to teach. I'm going to be famous someday. And as I got older and wiser and, without the cockiness of a teenager, I started to really, truly realize that teaching is a blessing if you can enjoy it and have an impact. Don't get me wrong, I love to paint. I love to draw cartoons. I love to do caricatures. But working with a group of young folks and seeing them get it, especially when they truly love to draw and they've got that talent and that desire to become, just like to do it, to really be in the industry, that is a feeling I can't even convey. How good that makes me feel, especially when I see them years down the road and they still remember your name.
That is great. I also come from a family of educators, so I know what you know, the importance of being able to teach. People don't understand that teaching is not just an academic area. It's an art form. Everyone that knows something cannot teach it just because you know it. And, you're a really good teacher, honestly, even mediocre teachers, that it is an art form. It's not something that everyone can do. And I know I grew up with people saying that same little, mantra that those who can do, those who can't teach. But in all honesty, teaching is hard. And,
amen on that. I'm sorry, but yeah.
It's hard. And I've seen it, up close and personal. That I've seen people go through the process where they try something one way and it's not clicking. And really good teachers don't say, okay, well, you didn't learn it the way I'm teaching it to you. Shrug, shrug. You're on your own, and it's okay. Well, let's try it this way. You didn't pick it up that way. Well, let's try another way. And I'm impressed by teachers. I've always been very impressed by teachers, and it is, a boon to our community when the artists and, writers and mathematicians, anyone decides to go back into our community and teach, because teachers are not really given the type of stature they should in, our communities or in our country.
They are not. They are not, and it infuriates me. Don't let me get on my soapbox about that because y'all start preaching about it. But it's just a thing that irritates me. And, where would we be without our storytellers, our griots, our poets, our teachers? In some way or another, we all are teaching anyway. But like you said, it is an art form. And anybody who's ever had a bad teacher or someone that you knew did not want to be there, and they were there because, I don't know, they didn't have anything else that they could think of to do, and they made a big mistake. And everyone knows, or everyone should know, what it's like to have that teacher that loves their job, and you walk in there and you're thinking, wow, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so likes me, likes the subject that they're teaching, and you never forget them. I still remember some junior high school teachers I've had that I loved. I mean, they, and if I could look them up today, some of them I have had the opportunity to, but those that I haven't, I just wish they had some way of knowing, like if they were on Facebook or something like that, to let them know, you made my learning experience a joy. You contributed to that. That's what I seek to do.
And you make a difference in my life, that my life is different because of a lot of us, we get out, we grow up and we move on, and sometimes forget to turn, around and look back at these teachers and say that. And I know, for instance, not to get way off the path, but one of my sons, a student, and one of his teachers was saying, this is why you get into teaching, because you have an opportunity to teach, a student like this who appreciates we get a teacher that says, they get in and they do that thing. You have a student who says, yeah, I'm getting it. I'm with you. That's a great, great thing. And, for all the, parents and students who forget or to thank you, on their behalf, I will thank you. Because, for me, it's like, I tell you, I can't drop it, this artist, art.
I'm sorry.
So I am impressed by anybody that is a graphic artist that can actually draw. That you look and it's in your head, and then you put it, on a paper or a computer screen or something. I'm always really impressed by anyone that can do that.
Thank you.
To me, that's the ultimate thing, to be able to do that. A lot of people just don't realize everybody can't do that, especially artists. Artists always think everybody can do that. You say, oh, well, just, draw. You just sit down and just draw. Okay, thank you. It's like, I'll do that.
Okay, guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. I'm going to tell you here's something that I like to do. I'm all about respecting a person's industry. I have a girlfriend that, let me be clear, I have a friend girl. When we're out together, she's seeing if she hears someone sing on the radio, I can do that. If she sees someone on stage, she's like, oh, I could do that. And I'm all for encouraging people, but I guess I always feel like, respect the craft, because you may not like, say, Fantasia, but if everybody could sing like Fantasia, then, she wouldn't have been in for American Idol. I'm not even sure why I used her. I'm not really a fan. That's who came to mind. But, when it comes to drawing, I will say this. Everybody's not cut out to be the next Ramir Bearden or Barnetta Honeywood or Aaron Magruder or someone, but if you enjoy doing it, and this is what I tell my students, then do it. Do it as a hobby. Do it as a way of, and this is a big one, when you're in a stressful situation, art forms are a healthy way of releasing that negativity or that whatever's giving you tension. Much better than, say, I don't know, smoking, drinking, or other types of reckless behavior. But everybody doesn't to do that. So that's something that I point out. Like, you don't have to do this profession, but, try it. You'd be surprised how much doodling could, take your mind off of something that's
Well, I guess the next question I have is, you were an artist in school. You went through, I know you said you worked in amusement park, and you did that, but at that point, were you sure that this was the road you were going to take, or was that, something you said, okay, I'm going to do this for the meantime? When was it that you realized that this is it? I'm going to be a professional artist.
Honestly, back in elementary school, I've always wanted to be an artist. I went through a brief period where I wanted to be a lawyer, but I don't think I could just lie like that all the time. Okay, I'm joking. But, as far as the art thing is concerned, I've always wanted to be an artist, but when I knew this was a definite thing, and specifically when I wanted to be a cartoonist, because I do paint, I do work in collage, I work in mixed media, but the thing that I live for is being a cartoonist. There was a grant that I was applying for, the Arts and Science Council, and I was trying to decide what program I wanted to do. I was in my early 20s, and not to take anything from painters, but it just dawned on me, okay, the world has seen black women as painters. It's seen the Cynthia St. Jameses and the Vernetta Honeywoods, and, so many other black women as artists, but the C. Scotts. But they're not, but if you ask someone to name an African-American cartoonist, one of notoriety, I can, because I'm in the industry, so I'll, would name someone like a Jackie Ormez or Barbara Brandon, but outside of that, most people can't, and they're hard-pressed to name a black male cartoonist unless they say the guy from the Boondocks, get them to say the actual name of the guy from the Boondocks, and that's when it hit me, okay, maybe there's a reason why I'm that girl who always wanted to read comic books growing up and wanted to watch the Super Friends versus go to ballet classes, because I felt like I was, I don't know how to say this, but I guess destined to do what I'm doing, because no one else seemed to be interested in doing it.
I know that I was one of the kids who, again, like you, always watched the cartoons on television, read the comic books. I was one of those. So I know exactly what you're talking about with regard to that part of our background. But when you decided that you were going to be a cartoonist, your father, who's an artist, what was his response?
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
My dad's kind of old school, so he was kind of like, I don't know, art don't pay the bills, and that's verbatim the way he said it. I had to quote it. But again, this is someone who grew up in Mississippi, and it was drilled in him, whereas as far as well as a lot of African Americans from that time period, you do something that go to college, get a degree, go work for somebody, make yourself a lot of money, get married, have some babies. But I was keeping it real. But, I don't know anywhere to be about that. That was part of his response. But I also know that he has been and is excited to see me do things. I've done a few public art shows around the city. Let's see, I've shown my work in different galleries, done a one-woman show those are things that people, get that. They get seeing your work in the gallery. They get seeing you do something on the streets of your city that everybody can see. I did a mural at Johnson C. Smith University last year, and that's something people can relate to. But when you tell them you're creating a comic book, they give you the side-eye glance, like, isn't that for little kids? So there's an education involved, just like with science fiction. There's still new ground to break where it's not just thought of as, oh, that's something that geeks do or that's something that white folks do. People have to be enlightened, but that's okay. That's part of the journey. I'm looking, it's fun for me.
Well, I guess right at this moment I have to do our station identification. This is Genesis Science Fiction Radio show. This is, of course, as you said earlier, a sponsored show by the Black Science Fiction Society.com. We are with our friend, Lena J., who is a consummate artist and diva, and she is taking us through the world of art, writing, and just divaship. So we talked a little about the art. We didn't get to talk a whole lot about the writing. So this, I'd like to cover a little bit more about your writing. So when was it that you decided, and I know that these two things come together, there's a cartoonist, that it's the art component and the writing component, and that you said, since, your mother was an educator, that you were a reader early. When you put these two things together, when you decided to put these two things together, did your prolific writing side just kind of come right out, or was it something you had to develop?
That's a wonderful question. And again, I must say thank you for inviting me on the show. I am grateful to have a chance to talk to this particular audience, lovers of science fiction, comics, etc. Let's see, when did it kind of come together? They were both always there. I've always drawn, and I've always been interested in writing fiction. Let's see, I would say when I was in elementary school, there was a writing contest in 5th grade, and interestingly enough, the very first contest I won was that writing contest before art, and we didn't get money. They had books donated to the school, and they put like a plaque with your name in it. And when you're like, 9 years old, you're thinking, I don't want that. I want money or candy or something, But then later on in life, I was like, wow, that book is somewhere in that library, I think, and it still has your name in it. That was a great feeling. There's something about being able to take language, in this case English, but any type of language, and just sort of have your way with it. And if you can entertain people and make them interested in your story, to me that's magic. So visual art is one way of telling a story, but the written word to me, I'm in love with language. I just am. I love to hear people turn a phrase. It does it for me.
Mm-hmm. And what was your first writing, other than your contest when you were young, but when you started out, did you actually do your writing separate from your artwork at any time?
I did. In the beginning, I used to, I bought a typewriter with my allowance money. It was $88 from Office something, kind of like Office Max, and it was a Buddy L typewriter. I carried it with me everywhere I went, and my chapters were 1 page long, but I was proud of them. I was going to make myself a book at 8 years old or 9. I was 8 or 9 years old one, and I was proud of that. And then on the other hand, I had these drawings that I did, always on typing paper, and I would ask for like that for even my Christmas gifts. My parents would say, what do you want, Santa Claus, or what do you want us to get you when I was older? And I would ask for toys, of course, but I would also ask for a ream of typing paper to draw on. I always drew. Even when we were on the playground, I would play with everybody else, but we're playing dodgeball, whatever, but I'd also eventually get tired of that and go somewhere in the corner, and I would write or I would draw. I didn't put it together until college.
And so in college, is that when you actually sat down and did your first cartoons?
Okay, I guess in all fairness, then if it's the first cartoon, that would be junior high school. We had a school newspaper, the Panther something, and I did these really crude drawings. Crude meaning that it's the early 80s. We didn't have programs like Adobe Photoshop or anything to give you speech bubbles, so everything was hand-drawn. And but I got a kick out of like being 12 years old and seeing them print my comic strip in that newspaper. That's like 7th, 8th grade. That was a great feeling. So that would probably be the first time. But I guess I count college because that's when, that was a regular, consistent thing with the newspaper. But if I'm being honest, it would be junior high school would be the first time I ever actually did like text with art. So, yeah, the marriage of the two.
And then when you started doing your actual cartoon, you're actually working as a cartoonist, when was that?
Very first time would be actual comic strip appearing in like a actual like real publication would be Cultural Calendar. It's now defunct, but I used to do Bohemian Cafe for Cultural Calendar in 1997. Then I went on to work with Pride Magazine, Rolling Out Magazine based in Atlanta, Urban Times, Showcase, a number of magazines. But the first time was for Cultural Calendar, and my editor, Joetta Talford, gave me the suggestion to use the computer. And I was really nervous about that because I was kind of a computer illiterate at the moment. But I taught myself how, and I'm so grateful to her for saying, your work can only look cleaner if you're able to use fonts for your words rather than write them. And I haven't looked back.
Now, you mentioned the Bohemian Cafe. That's one of the, the pieces that you have that you're currently publishing online on Blogspot. And
yes.
You take a look at, you have a very multicultural type of little troupe there. So that group of people together, are these based on people you know, based on just basic tropes, friends, family members? How did you come out with the individuals that make up that universe?
Well, a really quick story. I used to live in an apartment complex in Charlotte called Johnson Mill Apartments in the NODA area. And the best I could compare it to would be the Soho Village area in New York, or like Little Five Points in Atlanta. So it was real artsy part of the city, very bohemian. And there were all these interesting people live there that we meet, and actors and singers, and everybody was kind of on the come up. And we were all like in our 20s trying to make it happen. And I was just thinking, this is the coolest group of people. We all live in these really funky loft apartments. And I just thought it was a great idea for a comic to kind of, and I was influenced by TV shows of the 90s, like The Real World, where they all lived in like that one apartment together, as well as shows like Living Single, where they were all, 20-something-year-olds kind of living in the city. So those were my inspiration. And then maybe the old TV show Fame from the 80s, for the artsy part. But they're based on everything from my ex-husband to I based it also on one of the characters is kind of like me, people I went to school with, just kind of a hodgepodge of influences that I've seen over the years. But I'm really big on not actually making a character like a real person. I think that's a big mistake. If someone can look at your work and go, hey, is that me? It shouldn't be that obvious. Because then, you might have a fight and, okay. So.
Okay. And and I know that you have this, what other projects are you working on at the same time that you are producing Bohemian Cafe?
Gosh, I'm honestly all over the place. There are the things that I do that are what I call my bread and butter jobs, and that is where I gig as a caricature artist. I'm that person you see at an event that's setting up and drawing people, like, 5 to 8, 10 increments, and make your head real big and your body small, and I would say 95% accuracy with that. So there's my job as a caricature artist. And then there are the things I do where people ask me for, like, logo design or illustration for their books. Those are my bread and butter jobs. Then there are the labor of love jobs I have. Bohemian Cafe. Right now, as I was saying before, I'm really excited about the Tides Project, or the Tides of Time, where Jesse Sifford, the author, and I are working together about this book, a graphic novel about time travel in the 21st century. And again, it's a multicultural cast of people, because I can only imagine in the 21st century we hopefully won't be dealing with this black-white thing so much, and will be a more not so much homogeneous society, but race won't be such a big issue like it is now. That's my hope anyway. And then there's the etiquette book with Ebony Moore. Those are the two projects that I'm working on with others. There are a few others that I have. Black Pearl is a black science fiction project I'm working on, and that character is kind of like a black Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for lack of a better comparison. There's nothing really like that. I just thought, if I were a young African-American teenager, I wouldn't mind seeing a character like that, who's like a vigilante type. Doesn't have superpowers, but just, able to kick butt. And so that's their project. But right now, that's my focus: Bohemian Cafe, the Tides Project, and the etiquette book. Those right there are the top ones on the list.
Okay. Now, about your Tides Project, and kind of want to look at that just a little more closely, especially because this is a project that is kind of focused toward young adults.
Okay.
That is time travel. It is certainly science fiction, but I know you're doing the artwork. How much work, especially since you're also a writer, how much input are you having on that project as a writer?
I'm sorry, my phone, I couldn't hear it quite that well. Could you repeat that last part?
How much input are you having on that project as a writer?
Oh, okay. I heard you that time, loud and clear. Quite a bit, actually. I love collaborating. I do. There's something about mixing it up with another creative mind. It's the brainchild of the author, but he's been open to suggestions about, maybe how this character should operate, particularly if it's a female character. But it's let me see, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. There's a lot of influence that I'm giving, but overall it's the author's vision. But there's, I don't know, I guess about 60-40.
Okay. And when you are involved in this project, that you said it started out is his brainchild, and that you are truly collaborating on this project.
Mm-hmm.
As a writer, have you seen the characters take on the personas that you saw them have as an artist? The thing that I guess sometimes when we draw something, I'm going to say we, that's just like general, because we don't draw, I don't draw. So when representation of this thing, that when first it's an idea in your head, it can do certain things. But once you make it concrete and you create this physical representation, then have you been able to, I guess, bend the words to the physical representation of the character?
First of all, I love your questions, and that's such a great question. Yes, it works both ways for me and the author. For the author's Jesse Sippert, when it's for him, what I've heard, and I've heard this from other clients as well, they had an idea how they wanted the character to look, and they gave me like a list of things like, oh, she or he should be this way, and I'll add in some things that, I think will visually look interesting, because my thing is it should make people want to pick the book up. They should see the cover and want to pick it up and buy it. People say you don't judge a book by its cover, but people will buy a book sometimes by the cover. So for the author, it's a thing of, wow, you brought my vision to life. That's a great feeling for me. That's a great thing to hear. For me, I love, I go into like what I call the zone, where I've got this character I've got to create. I've got one to finish tonight. And I have an idea of how I want the character to look, and then the writer has an idea of how they want them to look, and then there's a part of me that's a writer that also has an idea. And when you can meet and agree on it, it is a fantastic thing. With like my Pigtails project that I did, they had an idea how they wanted the characters to look, but we were able to collaborate. And I really didn't feel any compromise. There have been times when someone has asked me to do something, and I'll be very honest. There's a part of me that wants to go, that's so goofy. I don't want it. It's not even going to look right. And of course, I don't say that, because if they're paying me, I've got to make their vision come to life. But most of the time, people respect how what I'm seeing. And if I say this is not going to translate well into paper, they'll pay attention and say, well, how would you do it? And that's good when I can show them, or they can show me, and the end result is something that makes everybody happy.
Good. Now, one of the things that you discussed earlier was that you are a mixed media artist, and you mentioned Romeo Bearden. And I remember a couple of years ago going to a Romeo Bearden exhibit. It was Grant Hill's, which is phenomenal. So, I have a lot of respect for people, who can work in mixed media. So what was it, that drew you to mixed media, and are you still, working as a mixed media artist, as well as, all these other projects that you're doing?
I am. The last mixed media project I did 2 back-to-back murals. I did one mural for the Greater Enrichment Program, a nonprofit in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I did prominent African-American leaders in the city, including Mayor Anthony Fox and Romeo Bearden, who is world-renowned but was born in Charlotte, North Carolina. The other was a mural I did at Johnson C. Smith. And the reason why I mention murals, and you're probably thinking, well, that's painting. I did use fabric. So what I did was I drew it, I painted it, and then rather than just painting just the clothes, I actually took everything from newspaper to dried flowers to pieces of material I got from the Goodwill store, and hot glued the material onto the characters. So when you see the mural at Smith, for example, or Johnson C. Smith, and you're looking at the portrait of Nikki Giovanni that I did, or I did one of Alicia Keys. I actually used real jeans for Alicia Keys's body. I drew her face, but that's how I did it. I thought it would be interesting to make it 3-dimensional. I guess the problem is getting people to not touch it, because they're thinking, well, but I might have to lose that battle, because I can't keep an eye on it 24/7. But I first started working in mixed media when I was, I think probably in my sophomore year. We explored doing collage, and I fell in love with it. A lot of people would say, oh, you're influenced by Romeo Bearden, and I'm quick to tell them, truth be told, it's Varnetta Honeywood. She passed away a few years ago, but she's the artist behind the Little Bill series that comes on, and if you look on The Cosby Show, a lot of her artwork is in the background of that and On a Different World and shows like Martin. And she influenced me largely because, I don't know, it's something about the way that she would, it was very folksy, but I'm at a loss.
Elegant.
You say elegant?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know it.
Yeah. Didn't she? Wasn't she the one who did the funeral? The
funeral procession. No, that was Wilson. That was Wilson's work. The one where Claire had it was in her family. No, that was I forgot his first name, but his last name was Wilson. The funeral procession, and that's the one that people remember the most. But the interesting thing is, it's Vernetta Honeywood's work that was actually, you see more of her work in the actual rooms on the Cosby Show. But yeah, a lot of people, if they remember any episode of the Cosby Show with artwork, usually they remember the funeral procession. Just like, I'm sorry.
I do. I remember that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. And like with Good Times with Earns, I enjoyed some of the episodes that focused on Jimmy Walker, not just as the buffoon character, beloved buffoon, but still a buffoon, but him as an artist, because, I'm sitting here, I'm watching him as a little girl, and I'm thinking, okay, JJ's talented, but the character was at times goofy to the point of being an embarrassment, I guess. At least that's how I saw it as a child. So whenever they focused on him as a talented young man, those are the episodes I enjoyed the most. And, I guess for obvious reasons, it was more than just comedy.
Yes. And that's, I guess, also one of the problems I think that we have as Black people who are creators, who are artistic, that when people who are, Black, African American, are shown in that light, it kind of diminishes everyone and say, well, anyone who's an artist is not necessarily, a kid who, quote unquote, finds things all the time, who is disrespectful or silly, a kid who is an artist, a Black kid, an artist can be, a serious kid or a goofy kid or flaky or mean or nice or whatever. But unfortunately, because, there are so few representations of Black artists, on television, in, mass media, the unfortunate thing is sometimes people, even though they're not even looking at someone and thinking, JJ, that it unfortunately may be in the back of their mind.
Yes, and you said it. You said it. I mean, I agree with you, and I've got some mixed feelings about it because, and I've debated this before. If I think that's what you're getting at, because on one hand, there's this term Nelson George coined called positive image mentality, and that's that way of thinking where anything that is potentially offensive to African Americans must be at all costs stopped. And the truth is, we are all of that. We can't just take the parts of us that make us look glorious, like kings and queens of Africa, and say that's the only part that represents us. No, the other parts that aren't so attractive represents us as well. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all of that. But the problem is, because there are so few images that show us in a positive light, we become ultra sensitive. So you look at someone like Jimmy Walker and go, he's a coon. But on the other hand, for me, I was able to look at JJ and go, yeah, okay, a lot of people attack the JJ character, but, look at what he's done. When have you ever seen a Black artist on television like that? I mean, obviously the work was Ernie Barnes, but the character was an artist, and, his parents, they pushed him. They didn't tell him, oh, you can't make a living at that. I mean, whatever you want to say about the characters of Florida and James Evans, they were married, they were together, and they had high hopes for their kids. And they weren't saying, well, why can't you be a lawyer like Michael wants to be? They were like, okay, JJ, you want to be an artist, so be it. Yeah,
that you're a great artist, and they always supported, his artwork and his capabilities as an artist. And I think those things like that are important, and especially because we come from that background where you do have so many parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles who, look at you and tell you, well, you've got to do this. You've got to become a professional, because that's, what they thought we should become. That's what they considered, quote, unquote, successful. And I guess also because, as your father said, how you going to eat, basically, if you become an artist, because I'm going to pay the bills. And I bet you, if your dad was, my gosh, she's an artist and she's paying the bills doing that. I mean, that's something.
Let me be real. I have found some I'm going to tell you what's a huge motivator. They say that, what is it? Ingenuity is the mother of invention. Being hungry is a motivator. Needing your light bills paid, needing your rent or your mortgage paid. And one thing about me, ever since my college days, I said, okay, I've been given this gift. Thank you, God. I've got to find some way to make it happen, because I don't want to do a job I hate. And, sometimes I'll be honest with you, the phone didn't ring as much as I would have liked. The recession affects, people in the creative community just like everybody else. But that's when you have to get creative about how you get work. Thank God for the Internet. I mean, people make fun of Facebook or Twitter, but I can't begin to tell you how much work I've received from the Internet. It levels the playing field, whereas it used to be a thing of, they may not want to use me because I'm a woman. They may not want to use me because I'm African American or because I'm a Southerner or whatever, because my ears are big, whatever. They're not. Because of the Internet, there are all these opportunities that are there. So that keeps work coming through for me. But I work hard and I try to work smart, and I guess I redefine how I get work. A lot of people wait for opportunities to come to them, and I think that's how you don't succeed. You have to go and make them in ways that people wouldn't have even thought. I've been able to influence or get people to use me. They weren't even thinking about using me. It's not like a Jedi mind trick, but kind of close to it. Like, you will employ me and pay me whatever an hour. I will employ you. I'm like, yes, it's working. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to get creative about how you get your money, too. That's something I would definitely say.
Well, and that's another thing. As a business person, because you are a business person, this is your business, how have you found, and I mean, you touched on it just now, being, an African American female in a lot of times a very male-dominated business. How is the business?
Wow. Okay, that's another great question. How is the business? Let's see here. The business is good. I want it to be better. It goes up and down. It swings like a pendulum. Sometimes, checks are rolling in, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is great. On the other hand, does the black female thing sometimes come up? Yes. I've got horror stories of, in my younger years, setting up and drawing and having to prove to people. That part gets old. There are times when I don't feel like I have to justify it. And, I'm like, look, I'm 41 years old. I don't want to have to keep showing my resume to you or constantly directing you to, I don't mind showing my website off, but, people want you to sometimes tap dance for them, like, oh, yeah, you're good, prove it. And I'm like, my work speaks for me. If you don't like it, don't use me. But, it's true, the gender thing can be an issue, or the race thing, but if I dwelled on that, then I would be in trouble. I think, if anything, sometimes it gives me a unique way of seeing things that sometimes the people from the majority race can't see, or in some cases something that a detail that maybe a man won't see that a woman will.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we're now coming down to the end of the hour. I know it's hard to believe, but we are at the end of the first hour of the show.
Oh.
And we need to head into what we call the forum, where Administrator Travis will open up the floor and all of the people who are listening in will have an opportunity to ask a question. If there's anything that you want to cover in particular, if you want to talk about, to make a topic of discussion on the forum, that would be really great for you to let us know. Or if you just want to just field the questions, then we can do that too. And for those who are actually just listening or who are in the chat room, some of them will just, type out their questions, and, either if you're looking in the chat room, you can, read them and cover them yourself. If you aren't watching, you can't see it, I can read them out and you can respond. But again, this is where we are. This is the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Series, the March 29, 2013 edition with artist Lena J. We are a effort of the Black Science Fiction Society.com, and we are, again, going into the forum with artist Lena J. Right? So I guess we can get, and I guess the lines are, about to be open. And there is a question already that's actually been up for a little while, and it just said, what inspired you to become an artist and choose this form of art?
Okay, all right. Hello there, guest number 9. Let's see. What inspired me to become an artist and choose this form of art? My father was my first inspiration as an artist. I've always enjoyed drawing, but watching him, I would sit and watch my father in his basement studio paint, and he was inspired by Ernie Barnes, and therefore I was inspired by Ernie Barnes. As far as choosing cartooning as a form of art, well, part of it is I guess I'm naturally goofy. That kind of works. Having a certain sort of like a youthfulness that I don't think will ever go away. It's a unique way of, I guess, seeing the world. And as far as sequential art form is concerned, comics, animation, which I do, all of that, caricatures, it fascinates me. It's something about being able to take something and sort of skewer it and make it look like, the original, but there's something different there. And something I like to clear up, a lot of people don't realize, is I do draw realistically, if I'm commissioned to do like a portrait or something or a painting, but I enjoy cartooning more. It's fun.
Okay, cool. I know me and William, you had a question. Are you going to ask the question and not cough? Can you ask the question, William?
I was trying not to talk because I'm getting over the flu and I got this really bad cough, and I don't sound like me. Although I was told I sound about 3 inches taller than I usually do. So maybe there's some benefit to this after all. I did have a question, because one of the things that I always bring up, not all the time, but what I want to kind of get out there is, how can we elevate the art and the works of Black artists into the mainstream of American culture while retaining our unique identity? Because obviously you want to have a much bigger audience in order to broaden your appeal, and increase your revenue. Let's be honest. Almost all of us are doing this to try to make a living. So jumping over that Rubicon to getting into mainstream American culture, and yet not, as some of your less fortunate brethren would say, selling out, and well, I mean, that's what they do. As soon as you're successful in Greater America, they go, oh, man, that Uncle Tom, he'll do anything for money. And though it's true, I still resent hearing it. But I mean, seriously, how can we elevate our visibility, and yet maintain our uniqueness and still be able to broaden our appeal? I think that's a tough threshold to meet. What do you think?
Wow. I'm agreeing with you. A bunch of things are coming to mind right now. That selling out thing, I've got to tell you, I've had quite a few debates on that, and I'm of two minds about that too, because if you have backup, then it's really easy not to sell out. And I've had my actors and performers and not so much visual artists, but people in the arts that I've said to myself, oh, this person is taking the easy way out to get the check. But I've always said this, anybody who can quickly judge a person and say, oh, they sold out, yeah, you've never been out there, because, you know, if it's a case between not being able to pay your car note or your house and, well, let me go over here and draw or write or something that doesn't speak to me as a creative person but will pay my bills, I understand that, because, you know, the rent is real, or the light bill is real. That's something that has to be taken care of. As far as walking the balance between the two, there are just certain things that I personally could never do. I don't want to do anything that's so vulgar that it's hard to look at myself in the mirror just because I wanted to get a paycheck. Even if I did it under a nom de plume or pseudonym, I still don't want to feel like I contributed to anything like, say, misogynistic. Like if, I don't know, I'm going to pick on Lil Wayne, you know, like Big Booty Comics, and I need you to draw like me some hoes and make them this or that. Yeah, I don't think I could do that. You know, I don't think I could. And anything that puts the race in a way that looks really backwards, that I'm going to have a problem with. That's a huge one for me. But, you know, I don't know. I think that some people can sleep with themselves with anything. I mean, they can wake up in the morning and you can ask them to, you know, do something that's horrific. And as long as they're getting a paycheck, they don't care. I'm somewhere in the middle, but leaning more towards I've got to feel like if my kids can't see it, you know, and they're looking at me like, why would you do something like this? Then that's a problem. I can't get a paycheck from that.
Yeah, it seems like an awfully hard way to go, because people will, you know, because they hold the power of money, they will use that to exert as much pressure as possible to get exactly what they want, and not necessarily worry about whatever values you may have or any artistic integrity that you bring to the table. So yeah, I'm sure the question is different for everybody, and of course the situations are different for everybody. But I think you struck a happy medium there. You know, you want to be able to maintain your integrity. You want to be able to respect yourself. But, you know, on the other side of the coin is you would like to get paid and get as much recognition from as many different places as possible.
Absolutely. And I've faced this more times than people are aware. There was a nude figure drawing class that I taught in Charlotte. I called it Sable Noir. It's black and beautiful. And I received so much backlash from that, including from my ex-husband, who couldn't understand why I wanted to do a class with nude African Americans and people of color. And, you know, I mentioned all of the masters, or the so-called masters, the masters that we studied in college, and everybody knows of, you know, certain artists. If you mention, well, maybe not Matisse, but if you mention someone like Picasso, and they don't think about, you know, because he's doing Cubism, that those were, you know, naked people in some of his paintings. But that is something that makes people uncomfortable, especially down south, the idea of doing nudity. Anything dealing with race sometimes makes people uncomfortable. Anything or a lot of things dealing with definitely sexuality makes people uncomfortable. Not just nudity, but actual intercourse, anything dealing with that. But some of these things, some of these subjects we need to have some discourse about them. Obviously, sex is something that doesn't need to be discussed around young people, but topics like race, gender identification, I don't have a problem, you know, conveying it through my artwork as long as it's healthy. I don't want to paint, sketch, draw, write anything that is like gratuitous, anything that's just there to shock people. I see some artists and they do something that I don't really see so much creativity personally, and I don't like to judge, but as much as I think that's just provocative, you're just trying to get a reaction out of somebody. And if that's how they want to do it, that's fine. But for me, I don't create just to get a reaction out of people. You know, that's not enough for me. I need more than just, oh, wow, that was crazy.
Right. Well, I guess, a question, and I asked the questions already, but, another question I have is, I know you're a teacher. You teach art. And then for me, I have a daughter who, is of high school age, who considers herself an artist. I found, however, with her artwork, that she wants to draw what she wants to draw. She's in her art class, like the photorealistic, drawing and things like that, but she has decided she has her own little characters and stuff like that, and she wants to draw what she wants to draw. And as a non-artistic person, I really don't have a whole lot of room to stand my ground saying, yes, you must do this, because then I can't draw. But what would you tell a young person who is not, who certainly wants to be an artist, who has in their mind that they want to do their thing, but haven't actually, like the Picassos and Matisses, who, despite the fact they have their very own style, that they actually they're classical artists as well. How do you impress upon someone who is looking at, Picasso, who's looking at Van Gogh, who's looking at these artists and saying, well, hey, they're doing their own thing. How do you impress upon them the necessity of learning the basics of, becoming a classically trained artist?
That's a good question, and I've actually had to deal with that with some of my students. There are a number of ways that I've gone about doing this. First thing I tend to say is, please understand that influence is absolute. There's no way that your style is completely your own. And I will hear people say that sometimes, particularly young people, well, this is how I do it. I'm like, but whether you're aware of it or not, you are constantly being influenced. Everywhere you go, what you're seeing, you're taking in consciously and subconsciously people who've gone before you. And it's not that, when I'm talking to them, it's not that I try to convey that they have to do it this person's way. You don't have to do it Van Gogh's way. You don't have to do it Salvador Dali's way. You don't have to do it. And I also make a point to mention African-American artists when I'm talking to them as well. You don't have to do it Jacob Lawrence's way. But it is important to study what people have done before you, the ones who've gone before you, because there are lessons in what they've done. You will ultimately evolve into your own style. That's, going to happen. But the way to get to that path is to learn the basics. It's kind of like getting on a bicycle or flying a plane or anything that you desire to do. Somebody came before you, and there's a reason why there's steps to getting it done and not just winging it on your own. I do think there are people in the arts who didn't get formal training, but they were influenced. There's no way around it. If I were talking to your daughter, I would probably tell her, do both. Continue to work in your style. Continue to work the way that, is comfortable for you. But if you're interested in becoming even better or great, it is worthwhile to attempt and try and study and pay homage to these artists who come before you. And you can go back to your style, and you can do them both maybe at the same time, but just open your mind to studying other artists. There's a reason why they're famous.
I'm going to have her listen to this podcast.
Say it one more time.
I'm going to have her listening to this podcast. So she can
okay.
She can probably say it meaningless, but you said it has meaning.
And Lena, this is the Digital Brothers in the chat room, or the admin, or Jay, you kind of answered a question that I was going to ask, which something creative people sometimes think their way is the only way of doing things. Mm-hmm. And I like to show multiple ways to success. And I want to find out, what is your workflow? Is it a certain time of the day, or do you have to set an environment, or you just do it no matter where you are?
Wow, that's a great question. My workflow, okay, first of all, certain things are in place. And this is going to sound quirky, but this is how I am. Number one, I like to be clean. It's something about taking a fresh shower and, when I'm working. Sometimes I work from home. Sometimes I work from the studio. Sometimes I'm on site, which in this case will usually mean at someone's school or at an organization like a nonprofit. But when I'm working on a particular assignment, illustration project, for instance, I like to work at nighttime. I like my desk to be clutter-free. I don't know how some people can create with a lot of stuff all over the place. Maybe it's the OCD in me, but I like to see, I like things to be where they're supposed to be. And this is something else that I would say to young people. I have a cork board that I like to put above my table. I have a drafting table that I work from, real nice one from IKEA. And I like to look at my cork board above me. And I'm really big on having, like, inspirational quotes above on the cork board. Things like eyes on the prize, or maybe something famous from a famous philosopher, artwork that I've done before. All those things matter to me, to be able to see that, because it's, like a vision board. I'm looking at it and then I'm manifesting it. So those things are important to me. I like to work at night, and I don't like there to be anyone else around. And this is a must. I have to have my iPod so I can play my music.
Okay. All right. I'm going to step back and let someone else ask the question. I think there may be one or two in the chat room.
Yeah. This is Wolf Porter. I was listening in, and I wanted to get back with you about the question that Penelope asked about getting the kids to figure out why they need to do why they need to take the steps to get to where they can actually do their own work. And I deal with, as a former teacher, I dealt with that as well, and then also whenever I train people in in photography or video production, it's the same thing. And really, the answer that I've figured out that what that is it's not so much that they're doing their own thing; it's that they're doing what they know to do. Okay, so it's like, so the thing is, you have to and you broke that down pretty well. You got to break through that basically that barrier of fear, because I mean, let's face it, you have to break through that and let them know that you have. It's not that you're taking that you're learning these steps because you want to learn the dogma. You learn the steps so you can learn how to break the rules. So and,
I like that.
So in fact, I remember when I was had started graduate school, I had the misfortune, however you want to play it, having to spend that first summer in the dorms with the undergrads, which was enlightening. It reminded me of some days past. But one young fellow I'd gotten to know while I was there, he was as the term was over, he was headed home. And this was a prominent art school in the country, and you could see the disappointment on his parents' face. But his whole thing was, well, he didn't want to go to school because he wanted to do his own thing, and he didn't need no art school to tell him to do that. And I just laughed at him. I said, okay, so 15 years from now, when this catches up with you, and you realize that you had your chance to come to this really good school, learn some stuff, and then totally blow the doors out on things, just remember what you just said, And his parents were like looking at me like, yeah, you tell him, make him know. I was like, So I mean, and he, because I was telling him, because it had been many years before I'd finally gotten a chance to come back to graduate school. I told him, I fought like the Dickens to get back to school, and you will find that either you will have to do the same thing, or you'll be like so many other people who had their chance and peed it away, and then they'll blame everybody else, So, but
I like that you brought that up though, because that's another thing that I am learning and learn. Opportunities, are not guaranteed to keep coming the way that they might hit you the first time around. And I think a lot of people have this attitude, especially when they're young, and understandably so. When you're young, you think you're invincible, and, the world is out there just waiting on you. Just wait, no matter when you get ready to get out there. And you see opportunities, and you think, oh, it's going to always be like that. It's not going to always be like that. If that were the case, there wouldn't be a term like one-hit wonders. They would keep on making hits. But unfortunately, sometimes your time to shine is there, and if you don't jump on it, it may not come back around. So I think it's great advice to tell people to keep evolving, to get the education. Fine. If you don't need it, at least you have it.
And you also bring up a good point with that, because the one thing I found, is that, I've been very fortunate. I've had some great opportunities, and I've had some success, and I've had some failures, but it's like what I've learned so far that, you're right. Opportunities are not just going to keep falling out of the sky on you. However, what you do is you make sure that you can either make your own opportunities or be prepared for when that opportunity does come. And because, when I look back, every time that I ever caught a break, I was always ready for it. It wasn't like somebody just said, hey, we're going to give you this great opportunity, and I just had to tell them, well, I can't really do it because this, that, and the other. I was always in that position where, yes, I can do that. That's the main thing, and to keep remembering, just because, you're not dealing with a great opportunity right now does not mean that you shouldn't be, how they say, girding for battle, when the next one comes.
I like that. I'm just so glad you brought that up, because I'm sure that we all have, at this point in whatever age you are, by the time you're in your 20s, run into people who, if it didn't happen for them at a certain age, they give up on their dream. And then the question is, well, when do you give up? Now, I'll be honest with you. I think if you're wanting to become the next big thing, after Drake, and I'm going to show my age here because I don't really know who's hot right now. I don't know, Wiz Khalifa or somebody. I'm taking a stab at him. Pick on Lil Wayne again. And you're 50 years old. I think you might want to hang it up. But I will say this. I think it doesn't have to be necessarily, okay, I'm a hip-hop artist and I won't be able to do the mainstream thing. Maybe you have to go another route. Maybe it has to be hip-hop but done in a way like through an animated character, or maybe it's through something through the church. There's always a way to fine-tune your dream. I'm not trying to give like fortune cookie advice here, but I'm just big on not giving up. I think if it doesn't happen for you one way, then maybe you look at it, revise, and just fine-tune it. There have been many failures I have had as a cartoonist. There have been some things that have made me extremely proud, but then there were others where I literally wanted to bang my head up against the wall, like, what am I doing wrong here? But as long as I have breath in my lungs, this is where I don't know, I'm with 50 Cent. I'm a get rich or die trying. That's just where I am.
Well, and that's a great point. When you asked the question, when do you give up? I was sitting. My answer has always been either when they're shoveling dirt in my face or they're rolling me into the oven or something. It's pretty much over at that point.
Say it. Church.
But the other thing too, even with me, I've made so many different career changes, and it wasn't like, I remember back in the day, it was, when people ask me, what do you do? And I tell them, well, I did this and I did this and I did blah, blah, blah. You know, they see my resume and they look at me like, well, can't you keep a steady job? Well, it's like not so much that. It's just, you know, sometimes, businesses, you know, shut down or you know, you move or just all kinds of things. And I've noticed that, you know, I went from one thing to another thing and, you know, then I realized, you know, and for a long time it took me a while to figure out what it is I really wanted to do. And, you know, by the time I actually got around to that, I was fortunate enough to get into photography. And you know, once I got into that, I was starting to see, you know, that there was, you know, this stuff with filmmaking. I'm like, dang, that's the bomb there.
Fascinating.
So I worked my way into that, and I found out that, you know, photography helped me get into that. And then, you know, and then it was just another, you know, even now, you know, with this stuff with novel writing and stuff that I've been doing lately, you know, I've always kind of done that, but there was a time when I just asked myself, okay, well, how long are you going to keep saying you're writing a book before you actually write one? And, you know, and I had all these, you know, proto books laying around that I'd been writing for years, you know, and I said, why don't you just pick one and finish the damn thing? So that's what I did. And then when I did that, then all the rest of this other stuff started coming up. So I mean, you know, it's like you said, you know, you got to have your martial arts flow going, you know, just when, you know, you're rolling one way, you know, things are going to turn up and you're going to have to roll in a whole new style, but you keep rolling. But you know, that's been what I found. And like I said, you know, you keep bringing up these things, you know, like saying where, you know, you just can't stay in one place. You just cannot stay still. So like I said, so until you're, you know, till that EKG's flatline, I guess, you know, you're still in the game. You know, so, you know, you better be prepared to come off the bench, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking in the chat room, and there was a question that was asked a while back, and I think you answered in the chat room, but the listening audience didn't get to hear you answer it. And it was, have you done comic book conventions? If not, do you see yourself doing any in the near future? And that was from Kim.
Okay, I my phone hung up for a second. You said Kim asked about the Heroes Comic Book Convention?
Have you done comic book conventions? And if not, do you see yourself doing any in the near future?
Okay, I've done one. No, hold up, that's not true. I've done 3 comic book conventions, all in North Carolina. I would like to branch out and go beyond just comic book conventions affiliated with Heroes Aren't Hard to Find comic book store. To my knowledge, they are the biggest in the North Carolina area, and then I guess next biggest would be Atlanta. There's some type of black science fiction event down in Atlanta. I think it's called Sankofa.
That's OnyxCon.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called what?
It's called OnyxCon. They did
That's it, OnyxCon, yes.
A smaller event that was called OnyxCon Sankofa like a month ago, but they have one big one as well.
I would love to do that. I'd love to do San Diego. I'd love to do Dragon Con. I'd like to just go to those events. I haven't had an opportunity where I had someone who was equally invested in going with me until recently. With the author of the Tides novels, Jesse Sifford I mentioned earlier, this is something that we discussed doing some other conventions, because I see networking opportunities that I've been sort of limited to just North Carolina. Even though people are coming from all over the country, it's something to be said about going to seeing what bigger conventions are like. I think San Diego is the biggest. If I could go to one of with that type of crowd and the types of celebrities that they're bringing in, that could be life-changing and, at the very least, a learning experience.
And you said something about Heroes Comic Con. When is that?
The Heroes Comic Con is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's a big one. They bring in some heavy names, the ones you could expect from like Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, as well as they partnered up with the Art Institute, and then they offer workshops in creative and writing 101. I know they brought Stan Lee was at the last one, but I had a chance to meet Bill Willingham, and he, the creator of the Fables comics, and he had a really great writer's workshop. But again, I would like to do bigger ones. I will be at the Heroes Comic Con this June. I'll have a table there, but again, I'd like to do a bigger one. Maybe that's a Kickstarter project for me. You know, I noticed. Shout out to let's see, Kim Mosbury on getting her Indiegogo project done.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Good. Good, Penelope.
I've talked enough. Go on.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was going to ask. So when you go to these, when you go to your conventions, how much stock do you take? You know, do you take? You know, obviously you take some of your printed books. What's a good volume number for you? And also, do you take like anything else? Do you bring any like swag or anything like that as well?
Okay. In the past, I had Bohemian Cafe, my graphic novel out, and let me point out this is for adults because there is, nudity in that book.
Yay.
Pardon me. Yeah, and nude brown people too. So, you know, that was just something that, but it's not gratuitous. I mean, that wasn't something that I. Yeah, well, you got Marvel for that and the way they draw their X-Men characters, but that's a whole other subject. But I wanted something that, you know, that I could, with this new booth that we're going to have with the Tides of Time graphic novel, we're going to have that. But I'm all about making money too, so I'm going to draw like characters on demand. What I figured I might do is have a few well-known characters that people like, both Marvel and DC Image characters, and I'm thinking about putting my own twist on them. Maybe even having like a She-Hulk body or a Spider-Man or an X-Men character, and then I stick someone's, draw a caricature of their face on top of a pre-drawn body. But I need that booth to pay for itself. And maybe that's the hustler in me. But I'm like, okay, if they don't buy my book, I need to at least walk home feeling like we broke even. So some way or another, that's kind of my way of making some money from my investment.
That's a good point. I mean, because you know, I hear about a lot of people going to you know, trying to get to cons and things like that. I haven't been to a con yet. Well, not as an artist, but I've done a few book signings, and I've been through that deal where, you know, you go to you go there, you know, I've been able to pull in a couple of decent sized audiences a couple of times, and you know, and was able to sell some, sell some, push some material, you know, and it's always great when when the effort that it took you just to get there, you at least make that money back or at least make a little profit. And, you know, and I try to, you know, when I hear people saying they're trying to get to cons and stuff, it's like, okay, as an artist, if you're going and you're not prepared to you know, at least make the trip pay for itself, you know, then you really shouldn't be going. Or if you go, just go as go as a civilian, you know, don't go there, you know, have you know, get a booth and spend all that money, and even if you have like don't go there without enough material to sell, you know, and of course there's that magic number of how much do you take that, you know, so you don't get stuck with a bunch of stuff left over, you know. I mean, especially God forbid if nobody wants to buy your material.
But yeah, I think some people are, and I'm not an expert, but I am honestly a natural born hustler. I mean, an honest hustle. I mean, it's a legal hustle. It's, you know, comics, art, but I'm always looking at, you know, just about anything where I have to invest some of my own money versus, you know, being contracted out by someone or commissioned. How can I walk away with this and feel good? I need to either come out of this with, you know, a profit, or I need to have learned so much that it was worth the loss I took on the booth. If I could go to, say, Dragon Con, if I went there and I made like all these contacts with like people who are juggernauts in the industry who were able to give me invaluable advice. To me, that's worth, going. That's money in itself, but that's a value. But to avoid I still want the money. So for me, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Hello?
Everybody still there?
I'm still here. But
okay, we just had a little drop out there for a moment.
Okay. What you were saying?
Do we still got Lena? I think we lost her.
Yeah, we lost her, yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, well, we're going to give her a moment to see if she can dial back in, because that was some really good stuff.
Yeah. She's still on the chat.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, but she's like, your phone starts to act up. You just kind of, what can you do,
Okay, well, this is the part where you're supposed to have that canned music,
That music.
What's the one?
You want me to sing? Okay, well, we're going to use you.
I know they'll be playing that in hell when I get there,
Okay.
Let's see her back. No, we don't have her back yet. But
what we can do, she has a couple of websites.
Yes,
and I'm going to drop those in the chat room, because she has some really cool material on there that you can see for yourself, the stuff that she's done. And I'm going to give you the web address as well.
And Wolfgang, you have to stop chasing people away, man.
Oh, yeah, right. That was not me, man. She was in the middle of laying it down when she fell off. So there.
Okay, one of the websites, the web address is theworldoflenaj.com.
She's back.
You
have to unmute her.
Oh, hold on just a sec.
Yeah. There we go.
Hello?
Lena?
She's back.
Hey, sorry about that.
Okay, we're going to let her give you the address.
Lena, normally we wait till like the very middle of the show to go to a bathroom break while Wolfgang is doing the station identification. I probably should have had them say something to you about that.
Okay.
Anyway, what we were going to do is have you give out the various web addresses where people can find your work, find you, and learn more about you. So what have you got?
I'll start with my website, which actually has everything on there, the blogs, all that. It's www.theworldoflenaj.com.
Okay.
That's the first one. And of course with the http:// but just www.theworldoflenaj.com. There's also BohemianCafeComics.blogspot.com. Let's see, and I can. Oh yeah, I put a link there. Okay. I'm gonna put in the Bohemian Cafe one as well.
Did you say the World of Lena or the World of Lena J?
Oh, World of Lena J.
All right, well, type your own website properly, would you?
Oh, God. Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
Oh, my God. I'm just telling you. And I think the Bohemian Cafe comics, I don't think you need a www at the beginning, do you? I think it's just bohemiancafecomics.blogspot.com. Oh, she hung up. See, now I chased her away.
That's what I'm talking about.
And a sick brother can't get a break.
Okay. Got it in a couple of times now.
Yeah. And then she also has Lena, the Art Diva.blogspot.com. And she's trying to dial back in right now.
Okay, good deal.
Now this is where you're supposed to have like some of that music pop up,
Dun da 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 da.
I was thinking more like Chuck Rock or something,
Yeah.
Hey, at least he can hold a tune.
Well, it really is. Yeah, that's the thing. He's holding it. Yeah. Put it down.
Most people accuse me of strangling a tune.
My goodness.
I'll tell you, if anybody offers you the flu this winter, throw them a beating and then run away.
All right. Okay. It's a good time for a station ID. You are tuned into Genesis Science Fiction Radio, sponsored by www.blacksciencefictionsociety.com.
Yay!
How's that?
She's back. Unmute her.
Okay.
You don't want to
take 3. Hello?
You okay?
Okay, she's back.
I am. I don't know what's going on with my phone. Okay. Well, anyway, where were we?
Well, we got your web addresses.
Okay.
In the chat, and then Jarvis will probably post them up to the website as well.
Okay.
BlackScienceFictionSociety.com. He already did.
And they're actually on her profile on the site as well. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this yet because she's relatively new to the site. We've conversed on Facebook for some time now, but she just joined the site recently. We have an free events calendar where if there are events that you know about, you can plug them in there. And there's a bunch of cons in there that you may not be aware of. One of them is in Philadelphia. I think that's the East Coast Black Age of Comics. And you have one OnyxCon in there. It has the date for OnyxCon. Another one, Motor City Age of Black Age of Comics. And those are the ones that are up front right now. But if you run into different events, post them in there. There are a few others, but if there's something that you know about that we don't, post it in there.
Hello? Oh, I'm so used to my phone hanging up. I was thinking it happened again. I'm going to check out the website because I knew of the Motor City one, but I don't think I heard about the Philly one before. I'm interested in doing as many as I can. What I kind of need is a crew. At least there are 2 of us to do this. But in the past, it's really just been me. And so I kind of limited my visits to North Carolina. But I would love to get out to some of the other areas.
Oh, fantastic. And I think also there's the Black Age, and that's in Chicago. But I don't see the dates on here for that yet, but that's another convention opportunity. And I think all of the ones that I mentioned, they're sub $200 for a booth.
That's all? Oh, that's yeah. I've got to do that. Yeah, definitely count me in. Will you guys be at many of these?
So you might have to jump on the mega bus or something.
Yeah. Okay. They're still doing that. I know we call it the crosstown bus or something like that. But I heard something bad about one, so it kind of made me nervous.
There was an accident last summer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Was that in Minnesota? Where the bus ran into the bridge or something?
I think it went off the bridge.
Oh, man.
That's why they knew, because they went off.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode I've seen before. You know the one, don't you? Okay.
And then they're the
diner.
Yeah.
They're in the cafe, and one's from Venus, one's from Mars. But anyway, I'm gonna block that out my mind and consider that as an option. Thank you for suggesting that. Just in case, like, we don't want to actually drive or fly, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it.
Great. Well, I'd be very happy if you came to Chicago. That would give me an opportunity for us to meet.
Oh, I'd love that. I've been to Chicago once, and first of all, it's colder than people would tell me. I knew it was going to be cold, but I wasn't prepared for it to be cold in spring. I was like, wow, this isn't a joke. But it was beautiful, any opportunity to go back.
And it's very strange. Last year at this time, we had 80-degree weather.
Wow.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And I think that Mother Nature does that just to give arrogant people pneumonia. Because I swear, all right, I'm just going to say it outright. When the weather gets the least bit warm here, there are white folks out there running in shorts and sandals and stuff. I don't know how they do it.
They do that there, too? Wow. I
do
thought
they
it was
really?
Just like yeah, it goes on in North Carolina, too. And I don't know. I've often wondered, like, is there something in the DNA? I don't get it. How do they not feel what I'm feeling right now? And then what's weird is I'll actually get mad at people because they underdress. There's nothing to do with me, but I'm sitting here freezing and they're wearing, like, I don't know, like you said, shorts and sneakers, and for some reason that irritates me. But I don't know. Maybe that's material.
This is good material. That is good material.
I couldn't hear that last part. Say it again.
Yeah, that is good material.
Well, it is. And I don't know. I don't want to be insensitive, but to me, funny is funny, and everything is fuel.
Oh no, you're right. I mean, without humor, you know what we are.
Any number of things spring to mind.
Republicans.
Oh man! Now, why do you just cuss at us like that?
Well, hey, I'm just calling it the way I'm calling it the way I've seen it for the last 50+ years. Okay.
Anyway, bruh.
Anyway, every place that you're going to show up, that you're going to make an appearance, please put it on our scheduling calendar, because one of the good things about the group that we have here is, although we know each other very well online, it is so much more gratifying when you get to meet somebody in person, So
I agree. Oh, I agree.
Chicago, on Mother Town, sorry. A mild start to the Easter weekend, but I think we are going to watch.
I'm sorry.
No, that was some weather guy on my computer making a whole lot of noise. I had to shoot it. Sorry,
do what you got to do.
Well, I mean, some people, they come on your computer, they make a whole lot of noise, and that's just wrong.
Well, back to the other thing we were saying about, everybody meeting up.
Yes.
To me, that is one of the wonderful things about social media. You have these virtual virtual personas, and it's nothing like meeting someone up in person and saying, "Wow, you're just like how I imagined," or "You're nothing like how I imagined." Where did you steal your avatar from? That's clearly not you, at least not in 2013. I don't know, but I look forward to meeting other people of like minds, and the whole thing of like blacks that are into comics and science fiction and fantasy. I don't know. It's always been a few people that I would run into. If I could go somewhere where there are a lot of folks like that, I wouldn't feel like, wow, I'm the only one sometimes. I know I'm not, but it's just I can't put it into words. Plus, I've got my teenager over here wondering when I'm going to get off.
Well, the word you're looking for is coming out of the closet, because, I mean, it's for a long, long time. You know, I only run into maybe a handful of brothers and no sisters that, you know, would even admit that they like science fiction or anything like that, let alone read comics and stuff, you know. I mean, I distinctly remember having, you know, almost getting into fist fight, especially in, like, college dorms and stuff, where black dudes would come in and, you know, there'd be a whole bunch of us watching, you know, like some science fiction thing. And, why ain't y'all watching the game, man? The game, man. Why ain't y'all watching the game? Like, dude, the game comes out every year, year in, year out, whether we're alive or dead, you know. It'll be there, guaranteed, you know. But,
I'll be honest with you. I'm looking forward to seeing men, of course, but for me, the kicker is seeing sisters that are into comics, because every time I go to the comic book store, the few black women that I do see are there with their kids or their boyfriends. So, you know, I recently, you know, I heard about another black female who created her own comic, the Enigma comic, and I thought, oh, great, this is wonderful. Yeah. And I'm sure there are others, but we're probably spread out around the country, so, you know, we kind of need to meet up.
And that's the good thing about Black Science Fiction Society. We pull all of those resources and people together in one place. It's like, I think, 3,200 or 3,100 people on there. And about
I'm loving that website.
Yeah, about a third of that is females.
A third?
Right, that's about a little over 1,000.
Wow. See, I'm really new to it. Like, I think I've had my my page up for not even a week.
Yeah,
I think it's just I haven't really branched out and really had a chance to see who's on there, and it's different. I've been part of a social media site like that, but you have to kind of look around. I think I saw a group where I thought, okay, maybe if I join that.
Oh, there are plenty of groups. Feel free to navigate, play around. If you have any questions, somebody in the chat room or myself will be more than happy to help you. I'm on there probably about 18 hours of the day. So, but someone's always in the chat room, and people are really friendly, and they'll be more than happy to help you find whatever it is you need.
Okay, I'm making that my business tomorrow.
Okay, and we're about near the end of the show, but I want to squeeze a couple more questions in.
Sure.
And one of them, who are your heroes?
Oh gosh, what a great question. Let's see. I promise not to be corny. I mean, you know, you have to go with your parents on some level. Yeah, of course. But my heroes, let's see here. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Not inspiration, but who are my heroes?
It could go either way.
Okay, let me see. Who would I count as a hero? I'm drawing a blank here because I'm trying to think like someone I would actually think of as like an actual hero. At one point, my Uncle John was. I admired him for having only a third-grade education. He went off to the Navy, opened up his own restaurant. No, he started off as a short-order cook and then eventually went on to own one of the largest restaurant hotel chains and then like a mini amusement park in my city, and I admired that. It just goes to show you, I'm not anti-education, of course, you know, but it doesn't have to be, there's no one-size-fits-all way to success. Like I said, this man didn't even complete junior high school and yet was able to, you know, become a very successful businessman. So I would say that's one hero. Let's see, my friend Shawnee, she's got lupus and two other like arthritis kind of illnesses that are affecting her bones, and yet she's you know, putting herself through school, taking care of her son, and whenever I feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing this, and I'm not, you know, whenever I'm having a diva moment, I think about her. And I admit I have diva moments where I was just like, I don't even get out of bed for less than $100 an hour. And I think about her working her butt off, having to take care of her kid and deal with being so sick at times she needs to be carried to the bathroom. That motivates me. Like, I don't have any problems. I don't have excuses. So she's one of my sheroes, Shani Rashid. My boyfriend's my hero, that he went back to school and he's putting his daughter through school at the same time. And even when his mother left, to still push on and get his degree, so many, losing his house, all of that, that motivates me to see somebody, make it happen despite all crumbling around them. And then as far as inspirations are concerned, the crew from Mad Magazine, the usual gang of idiots like Jack Davis and Mort Drucker, those are my inspirations. I'm very heavily influenced by the comics that I read. The Hernandez brothers from Love and Rockets. I could keep going.
So you have
Wendy Penny from ElfQuest. That's my last one.
Okay. What's next for you in your career? I know you do mixed media, you do murals, you do all of these things. Are you maybe perhaps going to venture into animation at some point, or what?
I do. Actually, I have an animated cartoon on my YouTube channel. If you go to Lena the Art Diva, I forgot to give that up too. If you go to my, I think it's under Lena Hopkins Jackson, because YouTube changed it to my real, my legal name, my government name. So it's Lena Hopkins Jackson, and I've got 3 animated cartoons. One that I did when I was very pro-Obama. So I did a animated cartoon with the help of the rapper Blues and my friend Micah and Michael Lorick. We created a video with my cartoons called Vote This Way. You all remember Aerosmith's Walk This Way?
Yeah.
We came up with Vote This Way. I wrote the lyrics and I did the art, but Blues actually rapped because I can't rap. Then I've got a racier cartoon for adults only called Ms. Irvin Carey Bradshaw in the City. It's based on Sex in the City, but with a black female character. Kind of looks like Tracy Ellis Ross. And again, I have to emphasize this is not for kids, but it's 3D animation. I did that I collaborated with Tony, the animator Anderson. And
he's great.
Oh, you know him? Yeah, he's the truth, truth.com. But I met him through Facebook. Again, that's the contact that, considering he's in Fayetteville, we probably would have never met. And then I did another cartoon based on when President Obama signed the health bill, the health care reform bill. I know they call it Obamacare, which pisses me off, but the health care reform bill, which is, in my opinion, will make a lot of our lives better and less people will die. I decided I wanted to do a cartoon inspired by that, and Schoolhouse Rocks, I'm Just a Bill.
That is awesome. Make sure to post some of this on the site, because there's a section where you can share that with everybody. And you can look at other people's stuff as well. I had no idea you were already doing animation.
Yeah, but, I want to point out I am getting into it. I am by no means an expert. Tony's had years as dimensional learning. There is one project that's coming up. I haven't told anybody about it, but I will just say this. I think that it will have people talking, and it's kind of based on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So I'm looking for, and it's going to combine live action with animation, just like in the movie.
Oh,
I'll
definitely be looking for that one.
I think it's going to be dope. But I would say that. if nothing else, we're going to have fun doing it. So, and you don't have to worry about finding out. I'll make sure everybody knows. If there's one thing I love to do is promote. I figure writers don't write so people won't read them. Artists don't draw so no one will look at their work. So, what is the point of creating if nobody sees it but you? So I love to get my stuff out, and I love to see other people's stuff too.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any questions for Lena as we wrap up?
No, I think we can come up with for the moment.
What's that?
But when she's done, when she releases the book Tides, but you probably want to come back and tell us how it's going.
I'd love to. Could I bring the author along with me? Is it possible first?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'd love to. That's going to be in June. And the thing is, I like talking about projects that I'm collaborating on, but it feels incomplete if the other person isn't there sometimes. And the whole time we were talking about the other projects, I kept thinking, okay, make sure I mention these other people because I didn't do it by myself. So thank God for people who I've worked with, James Edward Bennett, Michael Lorick, Jesse Sifford, just to name a few of, people I've collaborated with, Boris Rogers. But I would love to, and I look forward to when we can all meet in person.
Fantastic. Hopefully we'll be able to do that at some of these cons.
Oh, count on it. I'm going to find a way to make it happen. We all know about Indiegogo, right?
Yes, we do.
And so, that's the way. I'm real big on applying for grants, too. I mean, I'll write a grant in a heartbeat. So if I can do something like that, just go in my own piggy bank, sure. Let's make it happen.
All right.
And lastly, we always have to end off with this. What advice do you have for someone that's interested in your profession?
What advice for other artists interested in, you say, science fiction?
That are interested in your profession.
Oh, okay. Gosh, I've got lots of advice. I'm just going to start rattling them off real quick. Draw all the time. Keep a sketch. For really young people, like children, keep a sketch pad with you. Draw everything. Draw rocks, draw trees, draw people. Some people say things to me like, I can't draw hands. I don't know of any artist who's there isn't something that's kind of a trouble spot for them. Some men have a hard time drawing female bodies with figures, don't make them look like bodybuilders. Some women have a hard time drawing a good muscular character. So I say draw everything. Talk to other artists, mix with other artists. I have met a lot of professional artists who, I don't know if it's a thing of being intimidated, but they don't like to mix with other artists, and that's a big mistake. I've been fortunate to be part of a group called a Round Table in my city where multidisciplinary artists got together, and some of the best advice I got came from people who were actors or playwrights, dancers, so mix and mingle with your own kind. It's something about being around other creative people that gets the juices, going. So talk to other artists, go to museums, go to galleries, research, submerge yourself in the arts. When I'm not drawing, if there's an opportunity to go to a musical or a play, I go. I don't care if it's pops, the symphony in the park. The arts is what I live for. And that's, that would be the advice I would give, to and to be fearless with your work. Just because you see somebody that may have skills that are tighter than yours, there are people I know that can draw me under the table, and they are bad. But that doesn't mean I can't draw just because this person is more developed in this area. So, don't be intimidated because you think that there are people out there. There's always going to be somebody better, or at least their style might be more profitable seemingly, but you don't give up, because for every, I'm trying to think, for every Rembrandt, there's a Gary Trudeau who could barely draw when he drew Doonesbury. I'm just saying.
That's some great advice.
He's going to call up. Why you put my name in? I don't even know you. Okay. I said it. Come looking for me, Gary Trudeau. I ain't scared of you. Put my website up, so I don't care. But, that would be the advice I would give, to be fearless.
Awesome. Okay, now we're going to have to, we went over a little bit, but it's okay. It was wonderful having you on. We want to thank you.
Thank you
so much
thank you
for
all.
your time and sharing all your knowledge with us. Anybody got any other comments before we go?
No, I think we're good.
William? What? Okay, well, once again, Lena, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing more of you on the chat room and on Facebook and seeing your work. And once again, you tuned into Black Science Fiction Radio, a.k.a. Genesis Science Fiction Radio. We want to thank everybody for participating, for coming here each week, and to also ask you to please share the show with your friends, tweet it, Facebook it, woof it, whatever you can do to spread the word about the show. Thank you again, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, and happy Easter.
And happy Easter to you all as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.